Fine-tuning your forecast, Part 2. This will start on page 125. Ask Mark, what does your office look like? I think many people are surprised that there isn't more equipment. I work with another meteorologist in a small office. There are 2 computer workstations and a weather desk with a bulletin board full of charts, formulas, and phone numbers that we use all the time. We have a small library of reference books, while the daily weather records of the past 100 years are in a handy file. We use them every day to create our forecasts. I work in a museum, so my office has a glass wall on one side so visitors can look in while we work. People can watch us give live radio forecasts from the broadcasting booth too. Is the weather changing in your neighborhood? What was the weather like in your town 10 years ago? How about 100 years ago? The daily weather records for your area are another tool you can use to fine-tune your forecasts, just as Mark does. Old newspapers and past editions of the Old Farmer's Almanac at the local newspaper office or library are great sources of climate information. For more detailed information about climate records in the United States, contact your state climatologists through the American Association of State Climatologists, Illinois State Water Survey, 2204 Griffith Drive, Champaign, Illinois, 61820-7495. Take a survey. How much are weather and climate a matter of fact, and how much are they perception, what people remember about them? Ask a group of people to describe the climate where you live. Don't forget to include your own impressions. Then ask each person to describe the weather over the past season or 2. We had a dry summer and it was very hot, but the fall was cold and dreary. See how many people agree on recent weather. Then check your own weather log or with a local weather forecaster. Are the people you surveyed mostly correct, or do memory and personal experience change impressions? In Canada, I switched. After this reading over here, I should have went up here. In Canada, contact the Climate Data Center at the Meteorological Service of Canada Inquiry Center, 351 Street, 351 Saint Joseph Boulevard, Hull, Quebec, K1A0H3. Try it. Research past dates and temperatures for your area and record them in your weather log. Do they match the weather memories you recorded? See page 105. Compare them with this year's weather. Do they see a trend? Summer was very hot last year. Summer was very cool last year. Summer was very long last year. The telltale tree. Here's another way to learn about the weather of the past. Look inside a tree and examine its growth rings. In years when the weather was warm and moist and the tree could grow easily, the growth rings are wide. When rings are narrow, it was dry or cold or both, and the tree couldn't grow as much. Climate scientists in the southwestern United States have used the Douglas fir and the bristlecone pine to accurately date events and climatic conditions of the past 3,000 to 4,000 years. There is even evidence of volcanic eruptions in these trees' growth rings. The smoke and ash from the volcanoes block sunlight, causing cooler temperatures. Try it. Find a tree stump in your neighborhood. Trace the rings onto a sheet of thin paper. Each ring shows a year in the life of the tree, with the center ring being the oldest. How old was the tree when it first experienced a period of dry or cold weather? Any volcanoes in its past? Now check the tree's recorded history against weather records. Do they agree? Weather words. Weather satellites are like mini spaceships carrying meteorological instruments. They take measurements of the clouds in the upper atmosphere and transmit information and pictures of the weather back to Earth from outer space so computers can analyze them. This view from above has given meteorologists a whole new understanding of weather patterns. The weather satellite on the top of this rocket will be released in space where it will orbit the Earth. Ask Mark, can you tell me about a time when you really got it wrong? When I began forecasting almost 20 years ago, I didn't have the computers and satellite information available today. One morning during my first summer of forecasting, I was on the radio talking about what a beautiful morning it was, going on about the blue skies and the birds singing. Just after I finished my forecast, I got a phone call from a listener 150 miles away who thought I was crazy. He was having a terrible thunderstorm with hail and wild winds. Definitely not a beautiful morning. Weather lore. There is an old superstition that if the brown bands on woolly bear caterpillars are wide, winter will be mild. But if the black bands are wide, winter will be harsh. When scientists at the American Museum of Natural History studied this belief, however, they didn't find any connection between the stripes and the weather. It's still fun to hunt for those fuzzy little caterpillars, though, isn't it? For added fun, jot down in your log what you observe about their stripes. Then make your winter forecast and see how much the woolly bears told you. Ask Mark. I'd like to see some meteorologists in action. Where can I go? There are lots of places. Ask a grown-up to call the nearest U.S. National Weather Service office. Check the United States government listings in the White Pages under Commerce Department to arrange a convenient time to visit. To visit a local office of the Meteorological Service of Canada, check the Blue Pages listing for NAV Canada. You can also visit a local TV station or university weather station. Take notes in your weather log or bring along a tape recorder. Here are some of the things the kids who visit me at work like to do. Watch me use weather instruments and record data and ask me questions about how the equipment works. See where I make the forecast and observe me on air giving one, if possible. Make a forecast before they arrive and then compare it to my forecast. Weather lore. When ditch and pond affect the nose, look out for rain and stormy blows. Before the earliest weather tools were invented, people relied on their 5 senses to tell them what the weather would be. Of course, they could spot dark clouds and hear thunder, but could they smell when a storm was coming? Yes. Not only will ditches and ponds smell right before rain, manure will stink more than usual, and flowers will smell even sweeter. Our sense of smell is stronger when the air is moist, so we are more likely to detect the odors given off by soil and plants. Try it. When your weather observations and equipment indicate a storm is headed your way, go outside and take a big whiff. If it's not already raining, can you smell? Tell the storm is coming? Be a meteorologist. Low-tech weather tracking. Meteorologists certainly need to use high-tech tools to keep up with modern-day weather tracking, but that doesn't mean they forget to use their own 5 senses and simple observation skills. You might be surprised at how much you can forecast just by looking out the window or walking around outside. What predictions can you make based on these simple observations? Flags. Are they hanging from the flagpoles or flapping wildly? In what direction are they pointing? 2. Trees and branches. Are they still, swaying slowly, or bending way over? Grass. Is it dry or damp? Clothes on the clothesline. Are they hanging straight down or waving? After a day, do they still feel damp? Air. What does it feel like on your skin? What does it smell like? Birds. How active are they? Are they sitting poofed up on the branches? Pets. Does your cat or dog want to go outside? Answers. 1. Flags will indicate wind speed and direction. 2. Trees and branches will indicate wind speed. 3. Remember dew on the grass. See page 69. 4. Flapping clothes will indicate wind speed. If clothes dry quickly, the air is dry. Damp clothes signal humid weather. 5. A lot of water vapor in the air can make you feel sticky, and don't forget your own hair. Also remember when ditch and pond affect the nose. See page 130. Birds often feed vigorously before a storm. When the weather is very cold, they puff out their feathers to create an insulating layer of air underneath them. 7. Animals often act nervous and change their behaviors before a storm. Ask Mark. With all this computerized satellite data, why does it seem that the weather forecast is sometimes, wrong? Weather forecasts are only as good as the information forecasters start with and our understanding of how the weather works. Both of those things are getting better all the time. There are still times, however, when a storm is stronger than our data indicates. So forecasters start out with inaccurate information, and we don't know everything there is to know about the weather, so our forecasts are not perfect. Clouds are high-flying fogs. Here are some weather funnies that kids wrote. Water vapor gets together in a cloud. When it is big enough to be called a drop, it does. Humidity is when you look for air and find water. Rain is saved up in cloud banks. The wind is like the air, only pushier. A blizzard is when it snows sideways. Try writing down your own weather one-liners. Post a different one each week, and you'll have your family laughing up a storm while you teach them a thing or two about the weather. Ask Mark, what dream invention would make your job easier? A faster computer. Sounds simple? Consider that the world's fastest computers are already used for forecasting the weather, and the forecast still takes over 3 hours to calculate. If I had a faster computer, I could feed the newest information right in and see how it affected the predictions in an instant. Then I could fine-tune my predictions and say, for example, if the temperature is more than 85 degrees Fahrenheit today, watch out for thunderstorms, but if the temperature is less than 85 degrees Fahrenheit, it won't rain. Invent a weather maker. Draw a diagram of your own future weather invention. How will your invention help people? How will it affect other animals, trees, oceans? Think about your invention carefully so you don't end up changing the weather in ways you didn't intend. Maybe you will be the one to invent a machine that will blow big storms out into space, or will make air pressure rise so the sun will always shine down on our summer barbecues. There's that humidity chart again in Celsius and in Fahrenheit. And that will end on page 133.